I've come to the cemetery in Shrewsbury. It's divided into two sections. This is the new part with the recent graves, and adjoining it is the older section. Now here they've allowed the grass and wildflowers to grow as a nature reserve. We'll have a look at this section first. Immediately I enter the older part, I see a pair of war graves. This one is G.W. Rogers, and almost next to that is Private R.H. Painter, Royal Army Service Corps, 1919. Well, I'm seeing quite a number of these war memorials. They're not in one place, they're scattered around near this entrance. This one is Lance Corporal H.J. Barnett, King's Shropshire Light Infantry, so that's the local regiment. Shrewsbury is in Shropshire. 1915, aged 50. Now, because the grass has been allowed to grow long, it's not always easy to reach these memorials. Not because the grass is tough to get through, but you can't see what you're treading on and you can trip over old curbstones and fallen memorials. Now this is an interesting one, interesting design. Joseph Hayworth Redman of the Middle Temple, a barrister at law, only son of Joseph and Anne Redman of Copthorne House in Shrewsbury. He died in 27. A small table tomb. Our dear mother, Jane Pierce, the beloved wife of Richard Hinton of this town, born at Galesfield, Mont. I'm guessing that's Montgomeryshire, one of the old counties in Wales, no longer called that. And that's back in 1830, could be a 30. Some interesting carving at the top. The mourning angel on one knee, obviously in great sorrow. The inscription is to Edward John, the eldest son of John and Matilda Morgan, and the address was 13 St Michael Street in Shrewsbury. And then Matilda, and then John, husband of the above. Well, this old section is an absolute picture. The sun's shining, the wildflowers are growing up. There's absolutely nobody else here. It is just so peaceful. And there's a lot to see, and most of the memorials are readable. A tall obelisk in the red stone, and on the base we see John Gethin, 1899, and then Sarah, his wife. This is a large table tomb, inscriptions in each of the panels and on all sides. I'm seeing the surname Coggin on the centre panel, and on the other side again I'm seeing Coggin in at least two of those panels. Across at the far end of this old graveyard you can see the original Chapel of Rest. This is a very solid cross with some quite elaborate decorations on the two arms and on the top, and the wreath of flowers flowing over it. We come down to the base and I'm seeing the surname of Harries, George Harries, on the front edge there. I've come to a cleared patch and freshly done with the stones, and a simple inscription at the top in memory of those babies who died at the Royal Shrewsbury Maternity Hospital. And then we have some individual memorials: Catherine 72, Maria Jones in 72. Very simple, but they are remembered. One in a very white stone, and that reads John Pugh, 1824 to 1897. This one's on a very large plot. We have this lady gazing into the distance with her right hand on an anchor. The inscription just down the bottom there is Laura Lucretia, the beloved wife of John Marshall of Mountfields, 1932. But also on this plot is this statue here, nearly the same size, clearly a cross, but completely covered in the creeper. There is no chance at all of finding the inscription on that without extensive gardening. This tall and interestingly designed memorial has been done in a different sort of stone from most others, and very sadly it hasn't weathered at all well. You can see on the bottom here it's all worn away, and the inscription will be very difficult to get from it. A pair of table tombs. The further one is leaning at a bit of an angle. This one here, I can make out the name for Catherine Jones. Under the tree, Mildred Annie Kathleen, the dearly loved child of Richard T. and Emma Price of Glentana, Cannon Street, died in 1897, aged 8 months. As I come round the corner, you can see yet more of the older memorials stretching away on the hillside. Down here there's a flattened area in front of the chapel and some of the very much larger stones. Unfortunately there's no paths mowed through it, so it's going to be difficult to reach some of these, but we'll see what we can do. This is a very wide plot and there are 3 inscriptions on this headstone, but we'll have to get up close to be able to read them. The centre one is to George Worthington Jones, MC, Military Cross, Major Commanding Shropshire Royal Horse Artillery, only son of R.E. and A.E. Jones, died from wounds received on active service in Flanders, 1917, aged 32. This is a massive block of stone and a very clear inscription. Thomas Frederick Silla, 1906. Edith Molyneux, his wife. And then Norman Hunter Silla, died on board HMS Worcester, 1885, aged 13. Well, that's not quite clear why he was on a ship of the Royal Navy at the age of 13. They did start serving very early. He may have been a member of the crew. A very elaborate table tomb and a very clear inscription on the side. This is to Henry Atkin, who died in 1871, aged 44 years. This tall one, we can get the inscription from this. This is to Catherine, the widow of the Reverend Francis Leighton, and she was the third daughter of S.A. Severn, Esquire, of Wallop Hall in Shropshire. She died in 1884. A little further up the slope is that elaborate and very tall monument, possibly the tallest I can see round here. On the left panel, Reverend Richard Gwynn, the son of Thomas Girdler and Mary Gwynn of the Elms, 1873. And then if we come across to the one on the right hand side, Charles Waring Saxton, who died at the Elms, can't see that behind the creeper. There are inscriptions on the other faces, but this may be the key one. Thomas Girdler Gwynn, Justice of the Peace of the Elms, 1869, aged 80 years. A pair of table tombs next to each other in the same design. I'm getting the surname on the left of Higgins. Close by is this nicely designed one, but sadly they've used a soft stone for the inscriptions. I'm thinking it's William Williams, but may need to be corrected on that if someone could decipher the inscriptions fully. Up there you can see another pair of matching table tombs. I'll try and get a surname for those. And down here, almost lost amongst the creeper, I can see the name of William Meire, M-E-I-R-E. I've noticed that quite a lot of these memorials seem to have been painted. You can see here how it's all flaking off. I've seen it on others, but I've not seen it in other churchyards. It seems to be fairly unique to Shrewsbury. This is the loving memory of somebody, Richard Hudson Dales. Good solid piece of stone. This is a large family plot. Still retains the iron railings demarking its boundaries, and a very solid piece of stone for the memorial at the end. Now the first name at the top, despite the size of this plot, is for somebody that was 4 months old in 1870. That's Richard Henry Dan. In this area there are quite a number of the large table tombs. Not always easy to get the inscription off them. I can get it from this one. On the left we have Harriet Davies, and on the right we have Mary, I can make out at the top. A close-up of the left panel shows that Harriet was the relict, the widow of the late Edward Davis of Marstrom Hall. Not easy to get it all, and the date is 1859, age 76. If I pan across to the right, you start to see how it's very difficult to get the full inscription. And here I've chosen one of the better table tombs for the inscriptions. On the others they're even worse. As I've walked through the graveyard, I've come across numerous war memorials just scattered amongst the other graves. But here at the end is a garden of remembrance with some 50 memorials. I'll just pick a couple. Guardsman R. Gamble of the Grenadier Guards, 1917, age 25. Guardsman A. Lee of the Coldstream Guards, died 1917, And then there's a additional stone down here, and that's his wife, Emily Lee, and she lived on to 1951. And the back is a cross, and on the base we have the inscription Cyril Noel Mansell, wounded 1917 in Belgium, died December 1918, age 22, after long suffering, patiently borne. And then his brother, Walter Gordon Mansell, fell in action near Bapaume about 1919. About. Nobody quite knows when he fell in those battles. This is something quite different. Arthur Charles, the husband of Florence Pike, 1913, in his 57th year, and then he gives his regiments. But on the end here has been carved, presumably, the regimental badge. It's a lion. And there are some flowers, so this grave is still very much cared for. I've moved out of the old section with the wildflowers, a very peaceful environment, to the new cemetery, which is kept much more as a lawn cemetery. I'm going to walk up amongst these memorials and I'll pick out any that catch my eye. Sadly, this is one of those cemeteries that allows the health and safety people to run wild. These yellow notices on these various stones indicate that they consider them unsafe and they want people to do something about it. The theory is they might fall and hurt somebody. But these stones aren't large, unlike the ones in the old cemetery. 2 foot, 600 millimeters high. And if they did fall on you in that freak accident, it'd only be a bruise on your leg. It wouldn't be anything worse. Now I went up to this stone with a warning label on it, and I've given it a good shake. And I simply can't move it. I'm very much against the way these health and safety people do this to these graveyards. If the owners don't do anything in the near future, these stones will be taken down and destroyed. Love something different? Alison Parker, 2020. Much missed mum, grandmother, rambler and Dalmatian lover. William Herbert Owen has a horse's head engraved at the top of the stone. At the bottom is a small memorial bill from pals at Perkins, presumably where he worked. Richard Michael Smith was clearly a keen cyclist. This one has the flag, the Stars and Stripes. Frances Joan Corbett, 1998. Leonard, 2017. This one to Alan James Tovey. Alec has a picture of a digger. At the very far end of the graveyard is the children's section. This one to twin boys born in 2001. The first one, Adam, died a day old, and then William died 11 days old. A pair of stones. Baby Grace Blackmore, 30 December 1999. Then if I come forward, baby Olivia Blackmore, 2001. We saw some 40 memorials in a garden of remembrance in the old section, along with a lot of others scattered throughout the graveyard. We're here in the new section. There's another 100 or so in a garden of remembrance, and this will be for the Second War. What is interesting is that the 20 graves at this end are of Germans, and I'm guessing that these were air crew that crashed here in England, but they're all equal in death. Their names, a few with dates. Three at the back are actually Italians. And then amongst the Allied troops, we have them from different parts of the world. Nganda Kedugula was from the African Pioneer Corps, East Africa. Over here we have F. Nowak. He was part of the Polish forces. And at the far end, on the other wing, there are more German names. At least I'm assuming they're German names. They've got the German cross at the top of the stone. And two more from Italy. It would be nice if they did a exclamation board here so we could understand a little bit more of how the Garden of Remembrance came to have all these Germans and Italians remembered along with the British. It's not something you see in all Gardens of Remembrance. Some graves here for the sisters from a convent, Sisters of Mercy. And if I go right, you can see other graves. Sister Mary Margaret Carroll, Sister Mary Teresa Collins, and more as we go down the row there. And then an area of identical stones with just lists of babies' names. 15 per stone, and around 350, 400 names in total. These are all listed in date order. I'm suspecting they were stillborn babies, possibly at the maternity hospital here in Shrewsbury. We start at the top with Stephen J.G. Roberts, and we've got the names running right the way down. Further along, another set of 15 names, starting from July 2012. This one from October 1998. Isaac Neville, Oliver Day, Lewis Byrne. And at the back, a little bit of explanation. This memorial has been placed to remember those babies who have passed away and all whose ashes have been placed elsewhere. Well, I can't really add anything to that to see the names of these hundreds of babies listed. So I'm going to leave this cemetery in Shrewsbury now. Till the next time.